Hello everyone, hope you're doing great. This is Maro. So today I have Belfast 1943 version. I got the original Belfast as part of one of those New Year's containers a while back. I played some games in her and she was a very nice ship, but obviously in my desire to keep grinding through the different tech trees, I didn't really spend a lot of time playing her, other than I think when they had maybe sprint ranks or events like that. But I was curious about the Belfast 1943 and I wanted to see how she works, how she plays, and how she compares as well to her predecessor, the original Belfast, and contemporary Tech 3 sister, Edinburgh, also a Tier 8 British cruiser. So let me kind of start, I guess, with the comparison first in terms of how Belfast 43 compares to the original Belfast. Given that the new Belfast is one tier higher, that makes it a little more challenging for the ship, and certain things, I guess, were changed in order to make it easier for her to fight against tier 10 ships. Some things that could have used a little more improvement, but I'll get to those a little later. So in terms of hit points, Belfast 43 goes up to 38,400. The original Belfast is at 35,700. And as you probably know, original Belfast is tier 7, so one tier lower. Now, Edinburgh is 36,400. And, one would think that maybe Belfast 43 is getting a little more of a preferential treatment here, but what Edinburgh has that Belfast 43 does not, or the original Belfast for that matter, is a heal. And it's a very generous heal that can heal up to 40% of its original pool. The one that restores, I believe, either 40 or 50% of Citadel hits. So it's very valuable consumable to have. Original Belfast did not have that, and Belfast 43 does not have that. So right off the start, having fewer hit points, inability to heal hits, and in terms of armor, they are really very similar. And now Belfast 43 and Edinburgh, both tier 8 cruisers, 16mm bow and stern, which is higher than the original Belfast 13mm, but this is the difference in tiers. Belfast 43 gets 4% torpedo protection, Edinburgh has none. Citadel is pretty much the same, front to back, turret, a little above the water. But given that there is so little protection in the British light cruisers, your ability to bounce shells, although the main belt is in excess of 100mm, tends to be very little. So ability to hide either behind islands or in your own smoke is a must. Now, not having the heal and just a limited hit point pool really constrains you and forces you to be very, very careful in the ship. This applies to the original Belfast to some extent, but then the original Belfast is a tier lower, so it has that going for her that the Belfast 43 unfortunately does not. Now moving on to the main armament, all three ships have four turrets of 352mm guns. It's all pretty much a similar range on all three ships. It's 15.4 kilometers. Where Belfast 43 differs from the original Belfast is the reload time, and it's a 3-second difference. So the original Belfast 7.5 seconds, the new variant 10.5 seconds. Edinburgh, same tier as the new Belfast, also 7.5 seconds. Now, Edinburgh only has AP, New Belfast obviously keeps the HE, but the HE output is down. It's down in comparison to its not even predecessor, but perhaps a previous version. And it's down maybe around, I don't know, 15% or so on the original Belfast. But it's also down maybe another, I don't know, almost 30% on AP. So the firepower is seriously lacking. It's seriously lacking in comparison to Edinburgh, and it's seriously lacking in comparison to the original Belfast. And you feel it when you play. The few times that I did play the original Belfast, I did have this impression or a feeling where, I will smoke up, and obviously the original Belfast smoke time would be longer, but given the firepower I had, it would have the effect on the battleships, slowing down the push because the players would be concerned about sailing straight into that firepower. And you get that feeling with some other HE spammers also that are very good at what they do. Belfast 43, you know, it's not the same. The intensity of the fire is not the same, and the feeling that I got, it's not the same in terms of what it can do on its flank. Now, perhaps the number of games was not as large, and as everybody knows, I'm an average player, so that always can play a role. But that feeling of power and ability to kind of have the red team stop in their tracks, not there. And I think the reason for that is the firepower. The fact that it takes longer to reload your HE DPM, more importantly than even AP DPM, is just not there. Now, in terms of accuracy, it's all very similar. In terms of pen, the Belfast 43 gets 30mm pen on their HE shells, which is up on 25 for the original Belfast. So that's an improvement. But the ability to start fires goes down because your rate of fire is down. So you don't have the same ability that the original Belfast does. In terms of AP, you have the normal angle for I guess penetration, 45 to 60 degrees. You don't get the Edinburgh's improved 60 to 67 and 60 to 75. Now this is in line with Belfast, but again, you don't have the same rate of fire on AP or HE, and here you're also kept in line with the original Belfast as well, which is somewhat of a setback. The threshold for penetration of AP shells 25 versus 12 for Edinburgh, so again, not an advantage. The turret turn is the same, with the British cruisers, it tends to be slow, so no change there. What Belfast 43 gets that the original Belfast did not have, or does not have, and Edinburgh does have, are torps. 2, 3 torp launchers could be done in a narrow spread or individually could be fired. But again, here, Belfast 43 gets only 8k torps. Edinburgh has 10k torps. So it seems that there was a conscious effort on the developer's part that because of addition of HE, there was this insistence that the ship will not necessarily benefit from what the sister ship has or what the original Belfast has. And it does make me wonder sometimes if, perhaps it was too much. It would have been better if Belfast 43 had some, a few more things going for her than it does. But nevertheless, moving on. AA, and this is again another thing I think where the ship was shortchanged. Belfast 43 AA is worse than the original Belfast. It's worse than what Edinburgh has. You can cut it different ways. I think a way that I like to look at it is if, enterprises, I think dive bombers were attacking the ship, in terms of how much damage would you be able to inflict, continuous damage. And in that case, Belfast 43 comes to like 2,400 versus original Belfast 3,600. So that's 50% more. And I think Edinburgh is also around the same number, 3,600. So again, less AA, and you feel that. I actually have a clip, and I think I'm showing it here, is of me, I think in the first game in the ship. Pretty excited, right? Obviously, you get to see how the ship performs. Matchmaking seems okay. CV, I have a tier 6 Vester CV, so I'm not really that concerned about how things are going to turn out. And I decide to support my DD at the B cap and just kind of stay close, be able to use the radar if I need to. And usually you may want to stay close to other ships for AA support, but in case of a tier 6 CV, that's not something that, I was very concerned. And I was very, very wrong. Now, this may not be everybody's experience because I did look up the stats on this player afterwards. And this is a player that I guess plays CVs quite a lot and plays them very well. So definitely the player knew what he was doing. And obviously, I think I made some mistakes on what I was doing. And part of that is I didn't really expect maybe the hits to be so hard. And also, maybe I was potentially expecting that, the shells could come from some other place. And I was willing to take some of the CV damage on rather than risking, being deleted across the map. In any case, I suffered quite a lot of damage pretty quickly. I think I shot down something like 11 planes, and I think the lesson here is you must, you must stay close to other ships for AA support. The ship's AA is just ahead of Japanese cruisers, and I think we all know how weak their AA is. So this is something to definitely keep in mind. And I think when you encounter tier 10 CVs, as I have in some games, I have looked for AA support and I have stayed very close to those ships for the remainder of the game because I guess after my experience, I learned pretty quickly that there are definite limitations to what the ship can do when it comes to CVs and AA, and the AA is hampered. And again, I think this is the World of Warships effectively, putting a con against the ship because of the perceived pros. And you know, uh, it, I would have rather if they didn't do that, but it is what it is. So moving on in terms of speed, it's all the same across the three ships, 32 and a half. There is a slight improvement in turn rate when it comes to Belfast 43, 680 versus 730. Not sure how much of that is there. I mean, you feel that it does take time for the ship to turn, so it's there. But also, and I guess this is always the case, right, with all the British light cruisers, and I didn't play the other ships to just compare. But ability to stop is not there, and it takes a long time to stop. And that was always the case, and I remember that. But somehow I almost felt that the new Belfast takes even longer. Now I did notice that because of some changes in the ship, the tonnage of the ship in the game appears to be higher, 14,934 versus 13,720, and this is from the Game Models 3D site, I believe. Um, Edinburgh is 13,720, so the same as the original Belfast. And now I don't know if the reason that the feeling was that it took longer for the ship to stop is because of that added weight, which required you to be extra careful and really try to tone your speed down when trying to, slow down and stay in your smoke. Or maybe it was just a feeling because I didn't really measure it, but I definitely felt it. Now, I remember feeling it with the original one, Belfast, where you would have to stop and activate smoke immediately and start going to the side just to make sure that you stay within your smoke. So that's nothing new. But somehow I just felt, it takes a long time to stop and stay in your smoke. Concealment is something that's good. remains the same, 8.9 kilometers in both cases. In the case of original Belfast and the new Belfast, which is better than Edinburgh at 9.2 kilometers. And given that the new Belfast has a 9-kilometer radar versus 8.5-kilometer radar, that means that as soon as you're spotted, you're able to radar them. So, stealth radar is back. Petropavlovsk may have lost it. Uh, Belfast 43 has it. It's a I think 20 or 25-second radar. I have the module included to extend the longevity, and it's good to have. You're behind the DD, you're approaching the cap, you're spotted, you can immediately activate the radar. You may be able to activate your smoke. It allows your DD to see the DD or other ships on your fleet, and also catches them by surprise. Now, 12 guns, 10.5-second reload. I did not find myself doing too much damage to DDs, especially DDs that were already set to dodge and avoid after the initial salvo, because the amount of time it takes, and also obviously being able to hit the target at the maximum, not maximum range, but 10, 11, 12 kilometers. But nevertheless, I think that's a plus, and it's a support for the team. The smoke that you get is a different smoke. It's more of a quick DD smoke. You get one extra smoke in comparison to what the original Belfast had, so that's good. And it does change up the game a little bit, because the smoke now lasts 40 seconds versus 103 seconds before, and I think 106 for Edinburgh. So that means you will stop, you'll smoke up, you'll start firing, and then you will disengage. And I guess the key here was, and it's something that I think once or twice I got caught out not doing properly, is the smoke is off, and the red team is closer than your concealment 8.9K, and then you are in a terrible position. So being able to smoke up at the right distance, firing, and all you get to fire is maybe 3 or 4 salvos before the smoke is up. I also was caught out basically firing when the smoke was out, because I just didn't expect it or wasn't used to it, and I guess that's probably just a matter of playing more. But the smoke is gone and I'm sitting there firing, so not good. Luckily the ship accelerates like all the other British cruisers pretty quickly, so you can take advantage of that to sometimes get out of dodge, because with the armor you have, you will eat a lot of damage. Without heal, you cannot engage in one versus ones unless maybe it's later in the game, because you just can't afford to. And you also get a hydro. You get I think 5 kilometer for ship, 3.5 kilometers for torps. It's the same as Edinburgh, and it's an improvement to what original Belfast gets, which is 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers. And sitting in smoke, it always feels like it's almost a must to have that, because it makes a big difference. So again, a very, very good consumable needed sitting in the smoke. You're using the smokes, and with the right captain build, by the time that your one smoke is about to expire, you don't really wait long until the new one comes. It's just too bad that you don't have more of them, and you can almost string them together. Obviously, you only get a certain amount that lasts a certain amount of game time, so it's important to choose when to use them. But the ability to string them together if you need to is a big plus, and you feel that, and that's good. Now, just looking across the tier in terms of what else is there, and in terms of HE DPM, New Belfast, is behind a lot of her peers. I think he may be one of the ships with the least HE and AP output. And again, I guess this is made to perhaps, because you have all these consumables to make her uh, suffer more, right? Because in case of Edinburgh, if you want radar, you can't have smoke. Here you have smoke and radar, so you pay for that. Anchorage, right? You get smoke, but you don't get a radar. Um, so here again, I guess this is just a World of Warships choice, but it just seems to me that there was a long chain of decisions that were made to make sure that perhaps the ship is not overpowered, that potentially could have harmed the ship's viability within her own tier. Playing the ship, I never felt quite powerful. I always felt that I was playing her on the edge. I didn't feel like I had necessarily the same stopping power like I would with the original Belfast in terms of stopping pushes or in terms of having confidence to be able to, know that if we're a few ships down, I'll be able to make a difference. I just did not have that, and that's, I guess, because of the DPM. So my concern with this ship would be that a lot of compromises were made and that the World of Warships erred on the side of caution and perhaps were too, um, should I say, they were too harsh in terms of all the cons that they were put on ship. Nevertheless, I think Belfast offers a kind of an interesting and unique playing experience to a certain extent. It is a historic ship. I think, as far as I'm concerned, I like historic ships. Obviously, uh, fan of the period, fan of the navies and history. So having something like that in the game, A plus. But in terms of fun factor and perhaps ability to do really well, I'm not sure. Perhaps, good players, obviously, they're always going to make a way, make it work. Average players like myself, I think that's potentially something else. Yeah, I did okay in her, but if I had to choose, let's say, Mainz and Belfast 43, I think I would choose Mainz. If I had to choose, Anchorage versus Belfast 43, then I don't know. I may think that for all the strengths that Anchorage has, that Belfast 43 perhaps would be a better ship because it's a light cruiser and somehow a little more dynamic with being able to get close to destroyers and so on. So it may be a more fun experience. Between Edinburgh and Belfast 43, this is now a Tech 3 ship. I think this would be hard thing to call just because of all the strengths that Edinburgh brings to the table in terms of, I guess, primarily DPM, right? But it doesn't have the same ability to, I guess, get as close and use the radar against destroyers and, maybe around the caps and so on. So I think for that, I'll call it a tie, or maybe I'm leaning Belfast 43. So this is my impression. I hope it's somewhat helpful for you all if you're thinking about getting the ship, or if you have the original Belfast and you just wonder how the new Belfast compares to the original one. In any case, whatever you decide, I wish you the best of luck on the high seas. Maro out.